Hello and welcome to the FPL tips video ahead of game week 31, brought to you by Fantasy Football Scout. My name's Rich, and as always, ahead of the next deadline, which is game week 31, just a standard single game week, I'm here to run through a few tips ahead of that deadline. So first of all, I'm recording this Thursday night, so the Man United game has just kicked off in Europe, so just worth bearing that in mind. And this is going out on Friday morning, so we should have some interesting press conferences and hopefully we got a bit more news on Rashford. But that gets us into the first tip, which is going to be looking at non-free hit Rashford replacements. So I had a comment last week that, I assumed everyone has a free hit left. There's been a lot of content this week about Rashford replacements, which is basically to buy Grealish. So I'm going to look at some options for Rashford replacements if you don't have a free hit. Then we're going to look at defensive assets for this game week, so game week 31. Attacking assets for game week 31 as well. We're going to look at the Rate My Team tool. Once again, a bit like we did last week. I enjoyed doing that. Look at the best captain for this game week if that's a debate, and then the overall team that the Rate My Team tool in the Fantasy Football Scout members area recommends. And we're going to touch very, very briefly, because there was a brilliant article by Neil this week on Fantasy Football Scout about the final weeks of the suspension tightrope as it was. So let's get straight into it. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Drop a comment below if there's certain segments you like, certain stats you like seeing, and let's get straight into it. So first of all, as I mentioned, I want to look at the best Rashford replacements, but for people that are not on a free hit. Now, this could be you might not have a free hit left, or you might be considering or definitely delaying your free hit till later in the season. That's the way I'm leaning. Now, I wanted to look at basically eliminating all the teams who blank in 32. So Man United, Man City, Brighton and Chelsea, I've excluded them for the table that's on the screen. Now, it might be no surprise to you, but Salah is top of this table. It's sorted by XGI. They're all midfielders. They're all potential Rashford replacements. Now, obviously, I appreciate there's a huge gap between Rashford and Salah, so it's probably not one most can afford, but there are some people, I've seen people that actually still have a load of money in the bank. So I think Salah would be the clear replacement if you don't have your free hit. They're actually top. If you look at the next four, so including, game week 31, 32, 33 and then the double in 34, Liverpool are top. And to be honest, it's no surprise. They got Leeds away, fantastic fixture, probably a captain option this week. Then they got Forest at home in 32 when some people were looking at free hitting. But if you've bought in Salah, probably an easy captain there. Then you've got West Ham away, brilliant fixture in 33. And then they've got double with 2 games at Anfield, Spurs and Fulham. So if you can get to Salah, absolute no-brainer. Then we have the Arsenal assets. We've got Odegaard, Martinelli and Saka. Trossard's on the list as well. Probably a bit more of a minutes risk. So if we just look at pure XGI for the season, Odegaard, Martinelli and Saka, you basically can't split them. They played, between either 29 or 30 games each, and their XGI ranges from Odegaard at the top, 14.8, down to Saka in third place of those three, 13.85. So there's nothing really between them. I think a key theme of the videos, in the last few weeks has been Saka's on penalties. So he would be my preference if you can get to it. Martinelli's obviously been incredible lately. An XG of 8.47 out of that 14.35. He would probably be my second pick. But then there's nothing wrong with Odegaard. You get the minutes and his output has still been fantastic. Even if it's tailed off, from earlier in the season when he seemed to be a huge bandwagon. And a lot of people were looking at doing Martinelli to Odegaard. It doesn't seem like that long ago. I've highlighted Bowen and Andres Pereira in yellow. The reason for that is not only do they have brilliant fixtures, but they've also got a double in 34 while playing in 32 as well. So Pereira, who's on penalties now, Mitrovic is banned for 8 games. He's got in 32, he's got Leeds at home. Then in 34, he's got a bad double, but it's a double nonetheless. He could pick up, at least 4 points, you'd hope. Man City at home and Liverpool away. So Pereira is one to keep an eye on. And then while West Ham, they've not been good. I did catch very brief moments of their game today in Europe against Ghent. They've not been good. They don't have a good fixture this week. It's Arsenal at home. I guess one good thing is it's at home, but I wouldn't really fancy that. But they're still quite high up the ticker because in 32 with Bowen, you're going to get Bournemouth away. You're going to get Liverpool at home in 33. and then you've got a double in 34. So the main reason they're there is they've got a double in 34, although it's 2 away games at Palace and Man City. So it's worth paying attention, you know, to players like Bowen. I guess similarly, you could look at like Ben Rama, for example, but that's why I've highlighted those two, because Bowen, he's still got, you know, an XGI rather of 12.55 over his 29 games, so he's only just a little bit behind Saka, surprisingly. Saka's got a 9 XG and then Bowen's on about 8, so just worth bearing in mind. I also wanted to touch on Ward-Prowse. He could be an option. He doesn't have a double, but he does have, you know, some decent fixtures. I almost feel like as well with Ward-Prowse, he's a midfielder you can go to because of his set piece threat, because he's on penalties at any time if you're unsure on a midfielder. I apologise for the typo for those on the video. I appear to put him at 11.7 million. That's definitely not the case. But yeah, Southampton have Palace at home this week, Arsenal away, Bournemouth at home in 33. And then Newcastle away in 34. So they are quite low down the ticker, but I just wanted to draw attention to him. He's never necessarily a bad asset. He's always, you know, he's always an option in my eyes anyway. Then Maddison, a lot of people that are going to Grealish with their free hit, they're either selling Rashford or they're selling Maddison to get to Grealish. But Maddison, I mean, his stats aren't terrific. However, he's only had 23 appearances, an XGI of 8.92. There's a slim chance that, you know, that he's on penalties. They're actually playing for something. They're fighting for their lives. I mean, so you could argue not very hard, but his fixtures do look good. You know, if you can bench him this week, for example, in 31, Man City away, you've then got Wolves at home, Leeds away, and then Everton at home. You know, if Leicester are ever going to do anything, it's going to be Maddison, and it's going to be in fixtures like that. So I think more so than buying, and I have actually looked at buying if I don't free hit in 32. He's one I would think twice about actually holding. I think my preference, based on news we've had so far on Rashford, is I would actually sell Rashford ahead of Maddison. You can always make that decision, you know, down the line on if you're going to bring Rashford back if he's fit. But I just thought it was worth looking at those players for those, you know, that don't have a free hit. Obviously, if you've got any suggestions, put them down below. I'll be happy to read them. Then we're going to do what we did last week, because I want to concentrate this video on tips for 31. Now, obviously, I know chips are all over the place at the moment. So I've used the Rate My Team tool. You can find it in the Fantasy Football Scout members area. And we're going to look at one more time, so defensive assets for this game week and this game week only, just to get a flavour of what kind of players you could be looking at to attack this game week. I'm not necessarily expecting people to be free hit in 31, but maybe if you're on the fence between two players, going for the game week that is here and now might be your preference. So, I mean, goalkeeper wise, we're looking at Lloris for Spurs. There's a lot of Spurs players. The reason for that is you look on the right hand side of the screen, defensive fixture, the best one is Spurs at home to Bournemouth. One caveat, one very small caveat to that is the last couple of games, Bournemouth have actually been putting up pretty decent XG. But obviously, we don't just want to look at really small samples at the same time. So just bear that in mind. But Lloris is top. Then Edison's next. Again, Edison, Man City have Leicester at home. Brilliant fixture. And then Pickford is the third choice keeper according to the model, at home to Fulham, who don't seem to be scoring goals at the moment with Mitrovic, you know, suspended. Then if we look at the defenders, again, there's a similar theme. Perisic of Spurs, Trippier, always up there. He's not top this week, mainly because Spurs are at home to Bournemouth. Third place, we've got Porro of Spurs. Obviously, he looks a bit more nailed than Perisic as well. And I mean, he's like 4.8 million as well, which is ridiculous. And then Trent Alexander-Arnold rounds it out at 4.2 projected points for the week. He's again going to be one, if you haven't got your free hit, bringing in Trent could be a very shrewd move. Then if we look at the attacking stats for the week, so we got De Bruyne, he's top, 6.23, closely followed by Salah, 6.15. I actually much prefer Salah. His minutes feel a lot more nailed, despite the benching, you know, a couple of game weeks ago. Then Son is 5.67, followed by Mahrez, Bruno, Grealish, Kulusevski. You're seeing a pattern with defensive players and with attacking players here. Spurs, Man City and Liverpool. I think this is absolutely full of them. You can see, just we were talking about Ward-Prowse in the last segment. He's actually there just below Kulusevski, 4.51. Like I said, he's never a bad asset. If you can't decide who to bring in, I always think bring in James Ward-Prowse. Strikers, it's an odd one this week. It's kind of the usual suspects, actually. It's Haaland, 7.08, followed by Kane, 6.29. So again, Spurs, Man City. Tony's up there. He still hasn't got banned. We'll talk about him in a minute, 4.19. Isak at 4, Jesus and Watkins round it out. So again, it's just looking at those fixtures. I mean, bringing in Spurs players is never going to be bad, like for this game week only anyway. But I think for longer term, we want to be looking at Manchester City, and we want to be looking at Liverpool as well, depending obviously on your chip strategy there. And then if we move on to, rate my team, we've obviously put them all together. So all of we've just seen, that will give us the best captain. That captain is Haaland, followed by Kane, followed by De Bruyne, then Salah, Son, Mahrez, Fernandes, Grealish, Kulusevski. So again, we've got that same list of players with James Ward-Prowse thrown in there. I didn't mean this to become like a James Ward-Prowse show. This is, like I say, data off the Fantasy Football Scout members area. Then what I've done this week, I've gone on FPL.team and I've put together the best inverted team, for this game week. Now, I've done it slightly different. Last week, I did it based on budget and made some amendments based upon that. This week, I've just put together the best team. Now, this doesn't follow any FPL rules because it's unaffordable. And I mean, we have got 5 Spurs players in there with Lloris, Perisic and Porro. Honestly, I feel like if you are free hitting in 32, you could actually look at, and you can't find a move to do, you could look at bringing Porro in for someone, because then you're going to free hit and then they come back in 33. Now the fixtures aren't incredible, they don't have a double game week, but if you're stuck for a move, I think you could do much worse than a Spurs defensive asset, and the Rate My Team tool actually does back that up. Obviously, you always have Trippier when these teams are put together. I love the midfield: Salah, De Bruyne, Son, Mahrez and Fernandes. It's interesting here is Grealish actually just misses out, and I think it's well worth looking at the scout cast from Monday with me, Andy and Seb. Seb put together this brilliant table that showed, Mahrez has much better attacking numbers, so does De Bruyne, than Grealish. The thing we've got with Grealish is minutes. Now, I did see that Luke Disable, he was predicting that Mahrez and Grealish both start. So for this game week, I imagine that's why Mahrez looks the better asset, because he's going to be getting maybe similar minutes to Grealish. However, ongoing, I think people feel a lot more confident about Grealish's minutes. So it's just worth a debate there, because I think Mahrez is a bigger minutes risk, but I think you're definitely going to get the upside. I feel like Grealish, he's got 12 points in his last couple of games. To me, that feels like his ceiling. And, if you look at his points over previous seasons, it probably is backed up there. So Grealish is a good pick because he's minutes based, not necessarily based on underlying statistics. And then Kane and Haaland up front with as we said, Haaland captain. I do think I was a bit on the fence about who to captain last week. I think it would be so fun to captain someone like Salah or Kane, but I think it's just almost impossible to go against Haaland at the moment. If you're really chasing and you have Salah, go for it, but you've got to be prepared for it to completely backfire. I just finally wanted to touch on the suspension tightrope. I know I normally start off with this, but I saw an article on Fantasy Football Scout by Neil. Definitely worth checking that out. So I mainly wanted to highlight that, and I've screenshot a couple of bits from his article. But basically, the limit of yellow cards at the moment is 10. If you hit 10 yellow cards, you're going to get a 2-game suspension. The only worthy player on that list, that's a bit harsh. The only FPL relevant player is Tony at the moment, who has been avoiding that 10th yellow card for a few game weeks now. So teams need to basically, this article says you need to be able to get to your you need to be able to get to your 34th fixture for that team. And then the limit goes up, basically. So we won't have to worry about it for FPL purposes. So for Brentford, he needs to get to game week 32. So he basically, Tony, just needs to avoid getting a yellow card this week in 31, and then he needs to avoid getting a yellow card in game week 32. If he does that, he's not going to be banned for this reason anyway. I don't know what's going on with any, legal proceedings against him to do with gambling. So just worth bearing in mind. And if you are on free hit 32 as well, Tony will be a brilliant asset if he doesn't get booked this week to free hit back in game week 32 as well. So thanks a lot for joining me this week. I hope you enjoyed, and good luck for the game week. I'm looking forward to next week's video because it's going to be interesting. There's going to be a lot of people, actually on free hit. I'm still trying to decide my own chip strategy at the moment, so I'm going to go and do that now. But don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.